It's been a busy week, so News Talk 930 KLUP has taken all of San Antonio's biggest stories and mashed them all together. Now, with your weekly wrap, it's Peter Thiele on News Talk 930 KLUP.
News Talk 930 KLUP. I am Peter Thiele, and this is the weekly wrap. And joining us right now is, probably a man doesn't need a lot of introduction. He's been our Attorney General and is now going to be our next governor, if the people speak in the way that that makes the best sense for the state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General of the great state of Texas, Greg Abbott. Welcome to the Weekly Wrap with Peter Thiele.
Thank you so much, Peter. Great to be back.
You know, I have a question for you, and it's probably a real difficult question to answer. We have these kids that have all of a sudden been given this sort of green light ticket to come into the United States, and it's really unfortunate. These poor kids, and it seems like it's a walk. It's like a death march. If they make it through Mexico safely, they arrive and they're here, and it seems like they have nowhere to go. How do we deal with this?
Well, the characterization that you gave is accurate, but actually more benign. What happens with these kids who are brought here? First, the treacherous trek they go through means that not all of the kids who try to make it here actually make it here, because some of them lose their lives on the way. Others who make it here are the victims of sexual assault, abuse, threats, torture, things like that. Others are literally dropped off. There was a federal judge, Andy Hanen, in Brownsville, Texas, who was writing about kids just near the courthouse in Brownsville that had been a 3-year-old toddler had been dropped off by these smugglers on a street corner to fend for himself, just abandoned. And so the point is that it is a very tough situation. And because of that, earlier this week, to get precisely to your question, how do we deal with that? The first and foremost thing that must be done is the federal government must step up and do its job and secure the border and enforce the rule of law. As you know, part of the reason behind this to begin with is because the federal government's failure to enforce the rule of law. In fact, the contrary to that, by giving the impression that there was going to be amnesty given, it was widely understood in Central America that people could come here and get to stay here, and so it enticed people to go through that treacherous trek to get here. But listen, the state of Texas is tired of waiting for the federal government to take action, and so we are taking action by doing several things. One is to put more personnel on the border, more airplanes in the air, boats in the water, etc. But secondly, I announced earlier this week a law that I'm proposing to be passed in the upcoming legislative session that will get to the root of the problem. People need to understand these children are not just coming here on their own. They're not just showing up. They're not just mystifyingly appearing all of a sudden on our border. They're being brought here by smugglers, by cartel members, by coyotes who are operating in conjunction with similar cartel members and smugglers here on the Texas side. But the problem we've had is the Texas smuggling law is antiquated, doesn't work, doesn't apply to situations like this. And so I'm offering up a much tougher smuggling law where we can get our hands on these smugglers, we can put them behind bars for a very long time, and basically we will shut them down out of business. So let me answer a question that poses, and that is, why isn't the current smuggling law working? Well, on the Texas side, the law simply isn't prepared to deal with this, which is why it needs to be updated. But on the federal side, there is an effective smuggling law. But a federal district judge, Andrew Hanen in Brownsville, Texas, said that the federal government was complicit in the illegal action that was taking place, and he literally came out and strongly blamed DHS for being a co-conspirator in the crime of supporting these smugglers. And because they are not enforcing these laws, instead they are helping to complete the illegal transaction in these laws, of the smuggling laws. And so Texas is going to step up. We're going to take action. We're going to stop the smuggling, and that should reduce some of the problem that we are seeing.
I'm with Greg Abbott, the weekly wrap right here on News Talk 930 KLUP. Greg is running for the governor of the state of Texas. What confounds me is that we have people, and by the way, I do not blame these people for wanting a better life for their families. I don't blame them for trying to make the trek here. I think our immigration laws are antiquated. I think we need some sort of a guest worker plan. But a lot of these people come here, they pay the coyotes, and the coyotes do something crazy. And I don't think a lot of people know this, is that they make them smuggle drugs. And a lot of people don't know that, Greg.
Well, and people need to understand that the coyotes, they're not like these tour guides or anything like that. This is not a fun trip. They are there for a single purpose, and that is to make money off of these kids. And it is true that the coyotes often make these kids carry drugs and be their drug mules, quite literally, hauling drugs into the country. But to be honest, it gets worse than that, because what these coyotes do is once they get their hands on these kids, they have been paid some money up front to transport the children, and then they go about the process of extorting more money from the children. They do that sometimes by making them carry drugs, but what is a very common practice is they'll get them to the border, and then they'll say, well, we brought you this far. We're not going to help you cross the border until you give us thousands more dollars. And the kids say, well, I don't have it. And that's when the coyotes will begin to physically torture these kids, sometimes kill these kids, or threaten to kill their relatives back home if they don't find ways of coughing up with more money. And they find ways of coughing up more money. And then when the kids get on the U.S. side, they go through that same torturous process.
It's hideous.
Sometimes they're locked in stash houses. Sometimes they're assaulted. Sometimes they have their ears cut off. Whatever the case may be, they're being tortured to come up with even more money. And so these coyotes are committing the most horrendous physical torture and crime on these kids. And that's why we need to do more to crack down on it.
Let's talk about this campaign for governor. The half-truths that are being told by your opponent about Greg Abbott, I find so disingenuous. When people think of Greg Abbott, what should they think of?
Well, you can put aside the notion that they are half-truths, they are non-truths, but it's the kind of thing that you see when I think what you're talking about are the comments by my opponent. And it's what happens when campaigns are desperate and they start flailing about looking for something to say, and they try to make up things and say about their opponents. What people know about me is that as a Supreme Court justice and as Attorney General, I make legal decisions based upon the rule of law without fear and without favor. That I'm a strict interpreter and applier of the law. But more importantly than that, I am the person with the vision for the future of the state of Texas. While my opponent goes about talking about me and attacking me, I am focused on the future of Texas. I'm focused on dealing with the challenges that Texans have, such as this proposal about the smuggling law and cracking down on smuggling in the state of Texas. I'm the one with the proposal to keep Texas number one in the nation for job creation. I'm the one with a proposal to build out more roads for people to get around better in the state of Texas. I'm the one with a proposal to build better schools and improve our education in the state of Texas. So I'm the one who's going to plug in to the future vision to create an even better Texas than we are today.
I find that we live in a day where people seem to have more information at their hands but have less knowledge. And it's freakish, isn't it, Greg?
Well, we live in a short time period communication. Twitter 140 characters, you can have access to a whole lot of information, but the depth of it is not very great. And so you could call our information exposure is a whole lot wider, but a lot less deep.
It's just freakish. Let's talk about education for a second. We live in a world where our elementary through high school through colleges are essentially using the same system to educate that we did 200 years ago. What's that next step? What's the next? We seemingly know more about how the mind works, but we have no idea of how to help our kids and adults attain new knowledge. How do we modify our education system?
Sure. Several things we have to do, and the real answer to your question would take about a 4 to 8 hour seminar, but I'll try to compress this into about 1 or 2 minutes real quick. First, very importantly, you are exactly right, and that is our education system is based upon the way things were done in the last century. I have an education plan that you can find at gregabbott.com. It's more than 100 pages already and provides a lot of details about how we will transform education in this state. First, you build strong building blocks by working at the pre-K4 through the third grade to ensure that all children are reading and doing math at least at grade level. That keeps them in school, helps them go down a pathway toward graduation, staying in school. But secondly, we need to provide greater technology and tools to all students in all schools in the state of Texas because, 10 years ago, the iPhone, iPad, none of that even existed. But I've been in kindergarten classes now where children are doing math by moving, scrolling the finger across the screen, moving nickels into a bag to equal a quarter. These kids are learning applied math, thinking that they're just playing on a computer screen. And so it helps them advance in their education even faster. And we need to ensure that all students are doing that. We need to provide teachers the tools they need to improve in both literacy and numeracy training for our students. But there's another thing on the back end that is important to express, and that is we want all children to graduate from high school college ready, understanding, however, that 4 years in college may not be the best pathway for all students. We have an abundant supply of high-paying jobs here in the state of Texas that don't require 4 years of college. You can get a 2-year certificate and leave and begin making in your very first year on the job $80,000 a year and then work up from there. And we need to ensure that we have a highly trained, highly skilled workforce in this state to fill the abundant jobs that we have that will help people lead very successful, very satisfying lives.
I think that's an amazing answer. His name is Greg Abbott. He, well, at least for many of us, if we have our way, he will be the next governor of this great state of Texas. Greg, how do people find out about you if they've been living under a rock and don't know about you yet?
The best thing they can do is to go to my website, which is gregabbott.com. That's GREGABBOTT.com. I can also be found on Twitter at GregAbbott_TX. I was not able to get the first Greg Abbott out there, and so the underscore TX obviously relates to the Greg Abbott in Texas. And you can find me there, and I post daily information about things that are going on, such as that new smuggling legislation that I was talking about, or things going on with our economy and jobs. But follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook at Greg Abbott, or follow me on my website that will give you all the depth of information about my education plan, my transportation plan, my jobs plan, my plan to make sure that we keep Texas the very best state in the country.
Well, again, thank you very much. You're listening to the Weekly Wrap with Peter Thiele on News Talk 930 KLUP.